All right, so we're back live. We're having some technical difficulties, guys. I'm trying to get my man Cass in. We're gonna go. It should work this time, though. If you're tuning back in, welcome to the replay. Got my man Casanova in on the guest today. This guy's story is incredible. He is. Okay, let's see if it comes in now. There we go.
There we go. So you had to send it to me is what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because when I just tried to request you, it didn't let it work.
Gotcha. Hey, as long as we got it, brother, it's all good.
What's good, my man?
Ah, man, chilling, brother, chilling. Just trying to get some stuff. I got the kids finally laid down for the night.
That's what's up. Yeah, I'm praying. I'm praying to my kids because they're right over here. So we gotta see how this goes. They're not outside tonight. They inside. So we'll see how it all goes, man. But I think it's gonna be a good show.
Yeah, for sure, man. We could just, wing it, and I know you're gonna drop some jewels as usual. But yeah, we could go ahead and get started, man. I don't want to hold you. I'm super excited, and I appreciate you guys getting on. What's up, Ben? What's up, Nicholas? What's up, Cheeky? How's it going? So I got a special guest tonight, my man Casanova, who has an incredible comeback story, and I'm gonna kind of just save it, to let you describe it. But if you're taking notes tonight, this is someone who's constantly dropping jewels, who's can add substantial value to any situation you're in, regardless if it's his specialty, which is real estate, business, but just in general, relationships, finances, faith. So definitely, what's up, Ali? What's up, Sadler? What's good? What's up, Joe? So yeah, Cass, man, let's go ahead and get started here, brother. When I kind of have people on, and again, thank you for your time tonight, man. I always want to start off, from the beginning. So just kind of talking about, childhood, what some of the things that, it was like growing up for you. Do you come from a entrepreneurship type background? Could you just kind of give the people an idea?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the south side of Chicago. So growing up, I was raised by a single mom. My grandma, who was just here over the weekend for my son, who turns 9 today, she was just here for his birthday. So I was always close with my mom and grandma, which are basically the two women who raised me. My dad was never in my life. So when I've always been through a lot of adversity, right? I'm no stranger to adversity. Growing up on the south side of Chicago, when we see inner city kids, right, we resonate with them because we know what the plight's like. We know what the struggle's like. But at the same time, I think I was always a kid who had big dreams, big goals, big ambitions. My thing was I just never knew how I was going to get there. Right, my thing was always like, okay, people would tell me even when I was younger, like, yo, if you keep your head on right, like you can go anywhere you want in life. And that was great to hear, especially coming from somebody who's older. But at the same time, nobody that I ever saw was doing anything that I aspired to do, because all I saw when I was growing up was drugs, gangs, violence. It's funny because I just seen a meme out the other night that one of my buddies tagged me in, just because of where we live in Omaha, which is where I am now. We'll get to that. But anyway, it was that Soldier Boy. I remember where he was like, Drake.
Yeah.
Drake. Well, somebody else had basically the caption on the meme was like, well, one of your friends invites you to a party on 79th Street. And you're like, 79? And what's crazy about that is I grew up on 79th and Essex. So I know a lot of your audience might be either from the South or from the East Coast. But if anybody's from Chicago, you know that that's probably, besides what they call the Wild Hundreds, 79th and Essex is right up there at the top 2 or 3 worst parts of Chicago that you could definitely live in when it comes to drugs, gangs, violence. So for me, when I was younger, I tell you, I went through my first stint of adversity when I was 8, and I had 2 best friends who used to always, we did everything together. We were the 3 amigos, and so one morning, they basically came over, and it was like, hey, Cass, we about to go to the beach. And I'm like, all right, cool. And And for whatever reason, I decided that I didn't want to go to the beach. Right, this one time, for whatever reason, I decided I didn't want to go to the beach. Where every other time, I would normally just go. Well, come to find out, a couple hours later, their parents come over to the house and was like, "Hey, you know where the boys are?" My mom's like, "Nah, Cass is in the front room." And come to find out, a couple hours after that, they both wound up drowning at the beach that day. Right, so that was crazy that I should have been right there with them. Why I wasn't, I couldn't really tell you. It was just my gut instinct, my intuition was like, nah, today's not the day on this Sunday morning that I'm gonna go. And so I was going through life again, just always kind of searching for what my thing was, what my purpose was gonna be, where I was gonna excel. When I was 13, my grandma made the decision that she was gonna move me to Sioux City, Iowa. Right, which is a huge culture change for me, coming from big city Chicago to now you're coming to a place where there's only 80,000 people and very few of those people even look like you. So I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? So I was trying to figure out my way. A couple of years later, when I was 15 years old, I got diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma cancer. So I had a port in my chest. It was connected to my jugular. I went through basically everything that anybody else does when it comes to the C word. And I went through 2 years of chemotherapy there. And so that was obviously a huge trying time for me because before then, I was never, ever sick as a child. I had chicken pox, measles, flu. I had none of that. So I was always pretty, I was a normal kid, and on top of that, I was pretty popular. I was playing basketball, football, track, dance squad. I was doing some of everything, and then all of a sudden, I just one day found myself having a hard time breathing, and my mom's like, "Yo, what's up with you?" And I'm like, "I don't really know." And I was coming home taking naps, and then so she's like, "Yeah, we gotta go to the emergency room." And next thing you know, we go to the emergency room, and they're like, "We think it might be a little bit more serious." And my mom and grandma are like, "Yo, what does that mean?" And they're like, "We think you might have cancer." And I just remember my grandma being like, "Whoa, like what?" And then so that was that thing, but obviously I kept fighting every single day to make it through there. And then I finished off high school. I went to college for a couple of years. I figured out that that wasn't the path for me, that at least I wanted to go on. And then I came home from college. And I'll tell you, for anybody that's listening, watching right now, or even that'll watch this in the next coming days, trust me when I tell you I've done some of everything. So I know that you always talk about grind now, stunt later, right? And obviously you educate people on sales. When it comes to sales, I believe that I've sold just about everything besides crack or coke. I mean, I'm from Kirby vacuums to being a professional poker player to, I mean, I've done it all. And, but I was always just searching for my way. So I say that because a lot of people I know right now is going through this pandemic, and you see quotes and you see posts and videos, and you see that one that always stands out that's like, if you don't come out of this with a new skill, right, that you didn't lack time, you like discipline, you like all these things. And sometimes it's just very hard to see it. And so for me, that's what I was trying in my late teens, was 18, 19, 20. And in my early, 20s, I think my wife, she stuck by me a lot, but I was trying some of everything. And then just 6 years ago, I went through my latest stint of adversity where I just moved here to Omaha. And, to shorten up this story, I wound up losing my mom, my job, and my home all within a matter of about 2.5 weeks. And so that was a huge trying time for me because I had no degree, no family, no friends, no church group. I'm like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? And I was actually going to go back and get a W-2 job. And my wife's like, nah, you had just got this real estate license about 4 months prior. And I knew nothing about real estate at all. No, my parents never even owned house, car, business, nothing. So she's like, nah, like you got this license. Either you're going to jump in, you're gonna make something shake, or otherwise you're going to be always wondering what if. And so I did that, kind of with her support. I jumped in, and then within the next 9 months, I did 46 deals, $8 million in volume. I got the Rookie of the Year here in Nebraska. And that's significant to know because here in Omaha, Nebraska, the average home price is $187,000. So it wasn't like I was in Miami or California slinging like $2 million houses where I just did a couple deals. Right. But yeah, I would say I've definitely, had my shares of adversity, so I know what it's like to be down and to feel like you're at your rock bottom. But I also know, one of the sayings that I always live by is joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for pain. And so I think that all of that has helped get me to where I am today, along with the other small losses right? And things that I've been able to take. But yeah, I would say that's my journey up until this point.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy, bro. Because I've known you for a while, and I've known like bits and pieces of your story, but most of that, probably 75, 80% of that, I didn't even know. So that's cool, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And kind of going back to the adversity you were facing, the surviving, the things that you did so young. How do you feel like you were able to do that? Kind of looking back, because I know, like me personally, my biggest obstacle at that age, maybe not as big as yours, but at 15, I had my first child, and that seems like, a lot of the successful people I see out here has something in their childhood that kind of catapults them in the future. So just within that mind state, kind of where was your mentality at? And did you like have this like voice in your head that kind of told you that you are meant for more, and that this is kind of like a test that, in the future is going to be a testimony for you?
Yeah, so I'll be honest to say that no, I didn't have that voice in my head or anything, but here's what I did have, and I'll tell you this is significant to know because for any woman on here that's listening, for me, because I was raised by two strong black women and my cousin who were 9 months apart, and so she helped to raise me as well. And even as I got older, it was my wife that really helped to just keep raising me mentally. So I think that it was the women in my life that kept me going, especially leading with my mom. She would always be like, "Yo, you go, boy." And like even at the times where I felt like I was never the tallest, I was never the smartest, I was never the fastest. I could always build relationships with people. So I was never like the kid in the corner or anything like that. So I was pretty popular, but at the same time, my mom always, in the world that we would say, she always gassed me up. You know what I'm saying? So I say that because mothers, they always protect their children, right? They protect their babies, mama cubs, no matter who it is. And so I think that for me, that's where I give the credit to be honest, because I didn't know what I really had. I just knew that, like, and what I saw was drugs, gangs, violence, and I did so many things, man, that could have absolutely got me caught up. I could have been an innocent bystander. I mean, just growing up in Chicago, we see there's killings every single weekend, right? So I could have been an innocent bystander in so many ways, and I was just blessed. But I do know that, again, it was the women that was in my life, and all of these women were single women, but they always just protected my mindset. And so I say that for any woman that's out there listening right now, and maybe they're a single mom, or maybe their husband is just not in the thing, right? Or boyfriend or baby daddy, whatever you want to call them. But I know what my mom did for me was she always just protected my energy. And so that's where I think it was. And I think at the same time, it was like, for me, I knew that, like, we all know that we have a superpower, right? And I knew that I had some type of a superpower, and everybody on this video, everybody that's listening to this, we all got some type of a superpower. And for me, I didn't know exactly how to claim it, but here's what I did know. I knew that people was always the way that somehow I got lucky. Right? So what that meant is I understood early on that it was about building relationships with me, right? And it was about building relationships with people who looked like me or people who didn't even look like me. And so that was what I kind of recognized in the beginning. And so that's what I think took me a long way. And then I think when I became, like, because when I went through cancer and all of that, like, it was a little bit inside of me, and I think it was pride, which we all got pride, especially if you're a black person. We all got crazy pride, right? Like, and sometimes that pride becomes a fault of ours. And so I had a lot of pride, but here's what happened to me. You go from never being sick as a kid, you're always like, you popular, things like that, nothing's wrong, you're playing sports, so all of a sudden they tell you that you're 2 weeks away from death, and you could have just died in your sleep. You're like, oh, and now all of a sudden, and I'm in a town of like 80,000 people. So it's not super small, but it's not big by any means. Right. And when I was at the University of Iowa for 45 days, word leaked back that that's where they transported me to. So then it was like the whole city knew within like a week's time that I had cancer. So now it was like, oh shit. So right when I got back, now all of a sudden, the whole momentum, the shift, the energy, it felt like switch. Because now everybody's like, oh, Casanova, you okay? Are you tired? Are you this? So now I felt like it was like, no, like I'm good.
Right.
right? So it was almost like you had to wear that S on your chest, so you weren't a victim, right? I had to be a victor. So I'm like, nah, I'm good, I'm good. It's like that, never let them see you sweat. So from there, it was just like, okay, I'm gonna keep trying this. And then I think that my first ever like little job or whatever came from when I was pumping gas at gas stations. I was like 8 or 9 years old, and this was in Chicago. And so what happened was my parents, like my mom would always say she robbed Peter to pay Paul, right? That was what she was always doing. She was taking money from here and things like that. So I never had a lot. But she was trying to give me whatever she could. And so for me, though, I didn't want new shoes. I wanted the irises. I wanted all this stuff. And I knew that my parents really couldn't. So I was trying to figure out my way. On top of that, my favorite show growing up, I don't know if you ever seen it, but it was VH1's The Fabulous Life of. Right? So it was like VH1's version of MTV Cribs.
Right.
So when I would watch that, they would show guys like Richard Branson, they would show Mark Cuban, they would show the yachts, they would show the islands. And for me not knowing any better, again, in the back of my mind, I'm like, ooh, I want that. Right? Even when you're watching one of my favorite videos growing up was The Sky is the Limit by Biggie. Remember Biggie and Puff? Sky is the limit, you know, that you keep. And they showed them dudes on the yacht and all that. And so I'm like, yo, like, I want a yacht one day. But nobody around me had yachts and nothing. But I'm like, how can I do it? So I think my mindset was always on the destination, right? I just kept taking one step forward and again, understanding what that gift was. And that gift was always in building relationships with people.
Wow. Yeah, that's hacks. That's definitely keys, man. So if you're writing notes, one thing that, you know, I know that you had mentioned earlier is that joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for rain, you know, and everything that you went through was preparing you mentally, you know, giving you the confidence, giving you the skill sets to, you know, whenever you got to the point, you know, you were able to kind of take off, right? And you were always, like you said, starting with the end in mind, literally callousing your mind, right? And, you know, when they say it's 90% mental, you're a prime example of that, man.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I mean, for me, it was always just understanding that at the end of the day, like, we all want the end result. Where people see me now and where people see you and where people see, you know, our circle, people look at those things, but understand that there's been we all want the cake at the end of the day, right? We want our cake, right? However it comes. But you got to understand when you look at it, the ingredients, if you just had to eat flour by itself, would you like the taste of it? Nah, sounds nasty, right? If you just eating baking soda by itself, would you like the taste of it? If you're just eating eggs by itself, you wouldn't like the taste of any of those things. But at the end of the day, you can't have a pure, delicious, you know, without cussing cake, without all of those ingredients. So at the end of the day, we want the cake, but you got to understand that that cake is who you are today. And the only way that you got there is because you had all of those different ingredients, which built up your character. Right? Adversity, in my opinion, is what really builds character. Because you're never going to, what we look for at the end of the day is we all want the courage to go out there and live life by our own design. And I always say it, if you look at the shirt, right, I got the Dream Nation, right? And the whole reason why I got Dream Nation is because I believe that everything starts with a dream. And those of us who dare to dream while the rest of the world is going to settle for what society will tell us and deem as our reality, we're the ones who stand to be trailblazers, change makers, and ultimately make this world a better place, right? And so I know that you got a son, and for me as well, here's how this really came to be for me. So my son went through this stint about a year ago where he was afraid of the dark. Like the way that our house is, he's got to walk upstairs and then walk back to his bedroom. Now his sister's already upstairs sleeping, but he would come back down and a little bit is him just playing the game, but he'd be like, Dad, I think I heard something. Now the way my house is set up, you got to come, like right when you come in off the garage, you got the stairway and then you can go to the living room where you can go. So basically you can't even get in the house without walking past. So it's like, CJ, somebody, we would have heard him. He like, nah, I heard something. It's like, all right. So what will I do? I then walk him up to the top of the stairs. I turn on the light. I walk him down the hallway. And I say, look, son, there's nothing to be afraid of, right? And I show him the way. Well, now what's going to happen? Probably in the next year, maybe two, my daughter, who's now 3, she's probably going to go through the same stint. right? And so what will happen? Hopefully, if I've done my job right, right, that means that CJ no longer, or that means that I no longer have to walk him up the stairs or walk her up the stairs. Now CJ can walk her up the stairs, turn on the light, and say, "Look, Jada, there's nothing to be afraid of."
Right.
Right? And so that's my whole thing, is to make sure that at the end of the day, we try to live as much a life by our own design, because at the end of the day, something that was said to me, just like it was said to you by somebody that I would call as a mentor, but failure weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And when I first heard that, just like I'm sure you did, that stuck with me. It was like, yo, failure weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And I was like, oh man, like that's everything. Because at the end of the day, all of the times that we failed, we never look back on all those things that we've already done, right? And we failed many a times already. Whether you own a business, whether you don't own a business, whether you got fired from a job, whether you didn't get an A on that test, right? Whether you didn't ask that girl, or maybe you did ask that girl or that guy, but you messed up that relationship. It didn't matter what it is. You've already been failing, right? But you don't look back on that. And if you do look back on it, I guarantee you look at it as an experience, right? I know now that girl, that guy, they wasn't for me, right? But nowadays, when we get older, and this is why I'm so big into protecting the mind of the young, right? Especially what I said that my mom did for me, is because when you look at young kids, they had no fear. I just went through this with my daughter right now. I'm like, Mama, you want to go upstairs? She said, eh. I'm like, who do you think you're talking to? Right? I change you. But she has no fear at all. Kids have no fear. They're going to try everything. They're going to hear no every time. Like even with CJ now. We just went through this a couple months ago where Julie was like, I already told you the answer is no. Stop asking. Right? And you want to make sure your mom and the dad is always on the same page. But I was like, if I can kindly interject, don't stop asking. Now the answer is no, but never stop asking. Always ask, right? And so he took that, but that's the truth, right? You gotta always keep asking. And so it's about protecting their mindset. Because in the beginning, when any kid up until the age of about 14, 15, they're gonna have no fear. And then what starts to happen, society starts to put their fears on them. When we got kids that are young, we tell them what? Try everything. We want you to do band, swimming, basketball, now even YouTube. If you got a good enough personality, try everything, right? But when you become the age of like 17, 18, now all of a sudden society be like, no, you got to pick one thing, right? And then they can find a way to skew it. Because it's like, yo, look at Elon Musk. He didn't pick one thing, right? This dude out here letting spaceships go. And then he got electric cars. He's all over the place right now. I just read that he's now the 7th richest man in the world. He winning in the pandemic. But people will skew it then and be like, oh, but Elon Musk, you started out with PayPal. Man, look, you got to protect the mind of these youngsters, because at the end of the day, it's all about the dream. Right? People out here creating these Zooms and Facebook and everything. It started with the dream. And so for me, I've always had big dreams, big ambitions, and nobody can ever tell me nothing. And I think that that's helped me to get to where I am today. And trust me when I tell you, I'm always still growing. I'm always still learning. I'm always still watching and trying to implement.
Yeah. Now that's absolutely facts, man. And that's important to know. If any of you guys are parents out here, or, for future parents, you've got to boost your kids' confidence. You got to let them know to think big, never, always persist. If they hear no, keep asking. If someone says no, go to ask a different person. In fact, people, Kanye West, Steve Jobs, you mentioned Elon Musk, Floyd, very young ages, they was praised, they was highlighted, they were, told that they were going to be great from a very, very young age. So they already believed it. And the world can't take it away from them. Definitely got to. So that's a big hack, man. Moving forward, going into transitioning now, you're doing a lot of sales positions. You're building the skill sets, and then you get into real estate. Why do you feel like for you, and again, I feel like a big reason is definitely having your back against the wall. Once you burn the bridges, you burn ships. You have no excuses. Like you decide, like, yo, this is gonna happen. Like once you make that decision, like
it has to work or it has to work.
Has to work or it has to work. But besides that though, like the technicals between it, how do you go from never doing a real estate transaction to almost 50 in less than a year, bro? That's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And what's crazy about that is with a lot of so when I lose my mom, my job, right, and my home, all in that matter of a couple of weeks. Well, since we was living in an apartment and my wife and I, we thought, so when I talk about I lost my home, basically we had a house, our first house under contract, my wife and I. We was about to buy this house. Well, then all of a sudden, when I lose my mom, then my manager is basically like, yo, Casanova, we need you to go back because they had me up in New York doing some training. And I'm like, with all due respect, I can't go back. Like, my grandma's still here. She needs me. And my manager's like, yo, I get it, but, like, this is corporate. Like, and I'm working, this is a Fortune 500 company. So she's like, yo, this is corporate. Like, there's nothing that we can do. And I'm like, man, I was like, wait, hear me out on this. I already got this real estate license, and I got my house under contract. Just give me 3 weeks. Let me close on this house, and I'll be out of your hair forever. And she was a real cool manager, so she like, so, you know, normally they only allow you to give 2 weeks. On top of that, this was outside sales. So before I'd even get a territory, I had to complete the training. So essentially, what it all happened at, I didn't even have a territory. I'm still in this first training. So they're paying me on the clock to do nothing. Because I'm not even really training, because, you know, so she was real cool, and she was like, yo, I got you. So she allowed me to put in a 3-week notice. So we put in this 3-week notice, and I'm talking to my loan officer, and I'm like, yo, are we going to make sure we get this loan closed? He's like, oh, yeah, I got you, da-da-da-da. Now, keep in mind, I can't tell him that the moment you give me this loan, I'm going to have a job no more, right? Because then he won't, that obviously messes with his credibility. Right. So he ain't going to give me the loan. So I just keep praying. Well, what happens? The day before we're supposed to close on the loan, underwriters want some more information on my student loans that was in deferment, right? And I'm like, oh my God. So I try to get in the paperwork real quick, but that's just not the way they operate. Right. So what happens is that next day, then they go to re-verify employment, you know, at the company, and says, yo, Casanova's still working there? And the other company, it's like, well, no, I think this becomes on the Monday. And they say, is Casanova still working there? And then the company's like, nah, as of last Friday, it was his last day. And so then all of a sudden I'm waiting on that dreaded phone call, and I already know how this is about to go down because we hadn't already closed. And then the loan officer was like, yo, what the? And I'm like, well, first off, I just met you, bro. There's no way I could tell you, da-da-da-da. So anyway, now I got nothing. So my wife's second aunt, she's like, yo, I'm going through a divorce right now. She's like, if you guys want, you could just come here and stay in my basement. So she got 1 bedroom in the basement. We give the bedroom to CJ. So CJ living like a king. We put our TV and our dresser in the furnace in the utility room. So I'm going to sleep in there. And what's crazy about it is, as I'm helping people buy $250,000 houses, even $150,000 house, right? They don't know that I'm going home to sleep next to a furnace and a water heater every single night. Right? So it's all, they're like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy for them. But again, my mindset was, I knew if I served enough people, that it was going to come back to me. Right? So when I first popped off and I did my first couple deals, I just knew I'm showing these houses, but my motivation, I'm getting even hungrier because I'm seeing the excitement. And again, I knew that home ownership, I want to say that there's 78% of wealth that's tied to real estate and specifically home ownership. Right? If you think about it, when these people get equity in their property, if you don't tap into the equity, it's only like monopoly money. But a lot of people, that's where they start leveraging it. So I'm like, man, I know it's going to come. I know it's going to come. So then an opportunity winds up happening to me. And I'm going to tell you guys, just because JT is my man, I'm going to tell you how this all went down. But do this at your own risk. Here's what I tell you. So for anybody, so I'm self-employed at this time, right? So what happens is with a bank, they're not going to give you a loan on a home unless you can show 2 years worth of tax returns, right? You got to show 2 full years worth of tax returns. Well, for me, I'm still in like my first 6 months. Now, I'd already with my first 6 months, I popped off and I did probably like 20, 25 deals. So now I got the money coming in, but I still am sleeping in the basement. I don't want to go get an apartment. I want to buy me a property, especially since I'm in real estate. Right. So now I'm building more relationships with people. And one of the guys who I started building relationships with was a loan officer. And so he puts me up on game just at a coffee because he's trying to get my business and everything. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to figure out how I can get a house. I'm sleeping in this basement. He's like, yo, well, here's what I'll tell you. if you can get somebody that you know that owns a business, right, that they can put you on as like the marketing manager, give you a salary, right, and all you got to do is show your pay stubs for 30 days, and you should be good. I had the money. I just needed a bank to approve, so I went to one of my guys who was in real estate as well, and I'm like, yo, what about if you let me da-da-da? And I proposed, this is where you got to be creative. I thought about this for a couple days, and I proposed a no-lose situation to him, right? So here's the other thing. You got to be credit worthy, right? You got to be trustworthy. Where does the word credit come from? Because everybody's talking about credit nowadays. What is credit? A lot of the times people associate it with money. For me, I always say credit is the trust in one's ability to make payments over time and on time, right? It doesn't have to be money. If I borrow you my shoes, my phone, whatever, are you gonna give back? Are you credible, right? So that was what it was. So I proposed to my guy. I'm like, yo, I got a no-lose situation for you. And then he was like, all right, what's up? I'm like, look, here's what I need you to do. I need you to put me on as the payroll. We're going to let that money sit in the bank account, let it marinate. I already got my own money, but here's what I'll also do. At the end of it, I'll pay whatever your payroll taxes were that you incurred on us, right? So then what he did was he went to his CPA and was like, yo, is this legal, everything, da-da-da? And he can employ me as the marketing manager, right? And so that's what he did. So he gave me, basically, I want to say he was paying me, I want to say we did it like 60K, right? So he gave me like 10K. So basically, I had 60 days worth of pay stubs, and we just did it on a once a month, right? So basically, he gave me 5K both times. Right. And then we did that, and I let that marinate in the bank account, went to the bank, boom, what happened? They approved me on the loan. Once I closed on that, I honored what I told him I was going to do. I gave him his 10K back, plus I gave him a little bit of payroll expenses, which is maybe like $500-600, something like that. I don't even know if it was that much. Right. But what happened, I wound up buying my first home, right? Which is all within like 8 months of me losing my home and everything. So we get our home. On top of that, then we sold that house 2 years later, and because of the market first on its come up, I wound up selling that house. I was able, since I was a listing agent, I didn't have to pay a listing commission or anything. I bought that house here in Omaha for $160,000. We sold it 2 years later. I owed like $140,000 on it at the time, and then I sold it for $187,000. So within 2 years, I made $47,000. I then rolled that money over, and then I built a house for $500,000. But that was the down payment. So it all started from, again, my mindset, and that's how it all happened, and that's kind of where we are today.
Wow. People don't realize what you might have just said right there, dog. That's a couple $1,000s worth of consulting work. You basically built a new home within 2 years, pretty much using none of your own money, only your resourcefulness, your relationships.
That's exactly what it was. I knew that my guy knew me. He knew that I was credit worthy. And when I went to him, and the reason why I say that is because for a lot of us right now, we want to get into flipping, we want to get into the burr, we want to get into buying holds. But again, it's the trust in your ability to make these payments back. Right, and that's where a lot of people, and the other reason why when people look at it, it's like, how have I been able to win in real estate? Was something that I learned early on that was told to me from a teacher of mine. But he said, listen, in real estate, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And you gotta remember, especially when you're investing, that you fall in love with the deal, not with the property. Right, so all those things, even when I'm buying my own home, even when I built this house, true story. So look, I wanted a $10,000 shower in this house. True story, I wanted one. Well, then my wife comes along, this was like a month before it's supposed to close, she decides she wants a bathtub. We don't even take baths, right? We had this house for 2.5 years.
Not one bath.
I think she might took one bath, bro. We just talked about, but look, here's why. One, happy wife, happy life. Keep it 100, right? That's happy wife, happy life. So I ain't trying to say, but two, I understood that when you go to try to sell a $500,000 house, women come in and what do they want? Just like she wanted, they want bathtubs, right? So keep getting it. Now I already got something against me. If all of a sudden I'm trying to sell this house and they're like, I love everything about it, but they ain't got no bathtub in the master. So what did I do? I understood that at the end of the day, Is it really that big a deal of a shower or bathtub? No, this gives me more added value if I ever have to go south, because you never know. So again, I make my money when I bought, not when I'm selling. I already had this. And the same thing when I do when it's up front. Like, I'm so meticulous on my numbers when it comes to real estate, you know, and anything that I do, because there's so many things that you'll never foresee in business, right? So many little things that you just can never control. So that's always kind of been my mindset on those things. And how to answer your question a little bit more specifically, how did I jump out of the gate where the average real estate agent, right, does 1 to 2 deals in their first year? The average real estate agent, no matter what year, they do 45 deals a year.
Yeah.
NAR, the National Association of Realtors, says that 87% of all agents get out of the business within just 5 years of getting their license, right? So I did not jump out of the gate in 9 months and do 46 deals. We've said it before, but I'm going to say it again for the people who didn't hear it in the back or just joining. It was relationships. For me, in the beginning, I didn't know anybody here in Omaha, right? So what was I doing? I knew that, again, if they didn't know me, they couldn't flow me. I knew that everybody had to get to know me. So I was at every networking event. I remember just like it was yesterday, like my wife would get ready to go to work, and then CJ would have to go to daycare, and there's a 7 a.m. like BNI networking meeting or something. And I would be like, yo, I'm trying to go hit this networking meeting. Do you mind taking CJ to the daycare? Right? And she's like, no, I got you. Like, I will figure it out. So then I'm out at 6:30 in the morning. And then that was like the first time that I was ever exposed to how to win friends and influence people. On top of that, the whole reason why I got into real estate was a combination of 2 things. One, somebody had said to me, you have to figure out a way to be the Lord of your land. Right? And I was like, damn, like, but my parents never owned house car business. So I'm like, well, how the hell do I do that? But then the other thing was Rich Dad Poor Dad. For me, that exposure was everything, because I was like, man, I just didn't even know there was another way of thinking about money, thinking about owning assets, thinking about being the Lord of your land. So with the combination of those 2, that was where my excitement for real estate came in. The other side of that was, how exactly can I be more efficient with communicating with people? Right? And for people who are wondering, How to Win Friends and Influence People is by Dale Carnegie, and then Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. But both of those, so How to Win Friends and Influence People, one of the things that stuck with me in the beginning was be more interested than interesting. Right? And so that was like, I was researching so many things, because I was in sales, obviously, and I'm in sales. Everybody's in sales. So that's the other thing. If you're listening to this, don't think that you're not in sales. Everybody's a salesperson. You are a salesperson. So anyway, I'm listening to that, and I was like, man, how can I be different with the conversations, right? Because my name alone, I understand, is an icebreaker. What, Casanova? But you got to take it to the next level. So for me, one of the things that I read, and somebody was like, everybody go to these networking events, and they be like, oh, what do you do? But nobody really wants to talk about what they do, especially if they hate their job. Right? So one of the things that I started implementing early on was asking people, well, what are you into? And what do you mean? What are you passionate about? Right? And people are like, oh, like, well, you know, and asking people, like, are you in any intramurals here? You could say, hey, I'm new to the city. I'm thinking about getting into some intramurals, right? Or depending on what type of a networking event you're at, you're like, yo, what's your favorite restaurant here in Omaha? And people are like, oh, and it's off left guard. And people are like, oh, well, what type of food do you like? Well, I don't know. I just asked because tonight I want to do something special for my wife, right? And I want to take her to a restaurant. So we like this type. We like that. Oh, well, if you like this, definitely go there. Right? So now you just told them a couple things about you. You told them, one, you want to do something special for your wife. You're married, right? Your family. I want to take the family out, or I want to do something special for my husband. Now so because in the beginning, when you first meet somebody, it's always awkward. You don't really know who they are, and you're like, But if you ask them that, or I would always, even on listing appointments, how did I do that business? I would go into somebody's house, or even having a buyer, and I would try to find a connection. What connection can I find? So if I see that you got a Kentucky hat on, right? Oh, right away. Oh, I see you got the Kentucky hat. You like Kentucky? No, I'm actually a Louisville guy. Okay, basketball or football? Oh, football. So I'm trying to find a connection with you, right? And then, so how did you get to like them? And I want to get you to talking. So for me, it was always about those two things. One, I had the knowledge from Rich Dad Poor Dad, but then I was also learning how to communicate from books like Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people. And I think because here's the thing, where we were our energy, because I'm always a big energy guy. As you guys can see, like I drink no Red Bulls, no nothing. This is all water. But I always think that the energy, most of sales, which you and I both would agree on, I'm sure, is just your energy, right? So when you're continuously learning something new, your energy, it's gonna exuberate out, right? Like it's gonna send through your pores. So the other thing I was doing was listening to Bigger Pockets, right, for real estate. And so when I'm listening to Bigger Pockets, then I call up my guys or call up whoever. I'm like, yo, this dude just purchased a 60 unit year by using Burr. And now people are like, oh. So it was that energy. So I was continuously learning. So then I felt excited about something to go talk about it. And that's how I think that I did it. If you're asking more strategy of like what exactly did I do, I was doing 3 to 5 coffee and lunches every single week. I was meeting any lender that I could. I was doing everything with anybody who would sit down with me so then I could hear their story. Because once I heard their story, they'd go, Casanova, I know I've been talking a lot. Tell me about you. And then I would tell them about me, and then I would mix in my excitement, my energy. And at the end, a lot of the times, I didn't ask for anything. But what I would do is I would try to find a way or a problem that they said to me, and I would try to connect them with somebody who could solve the problem. And then on top of that, we connected on social media. I did that early on. So whether it was LinkedIn, whether it was Facebook. So then they didn't forget about me, but at the same time, that didn't mean that I had to hound them. So they was constantly seeing me. And then if you see my excitement and you see, oh, I hope this person buy, I hope this person sell, I hope this person sell. Now all of a sudden it's in your back of your mind. So when that time comes, people are like, yo, Cass, I see you selling everything. And then it just became that momentum, that social proof, if you want to call it. And it was just off to the races from there.
Yeah, that's a huge hack, bro. That's a super, super huge hack. Be more interested than interesting. And it seems like, you know, within you building the relationships, I'm sure you're treating everyone, Grant Cardone says, treat everyone like millionaires. You're not going in with the intent of necessarily trying to get their business or try to get them sell, but just vibe with them, have that energy, because eventually everyone's got to buy a home. Everyone's going to have to do some type of real estate transaction, you know, hopefully, you know, more than likely. And just by the way you made them feel, they say that people don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right?
Facts.
So that's big, man. That's a huge thing. And I think if you're in real estate, that's a huge key to take away. Of course, you know, they talk about marketing and, you know, analyzing deals and all these things, which is super important. But you say more than anything, just making a person feel good and build a solid relationship will blow up your business quicker than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's always about, right? How big of a problem can you solve, and how many people can you get to one believe in your vision? And that doesn't mean that they have to work for you, but that means that they have to be willing to work with you. If we look at Jeff Bezos and we talk about how rich he is, we talk about Steve Jobs, there's a lot of people that Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Mark Cuban, it doesn't matter who you're talking about. Even you right now, right? You're getting people to buy into the vision, to understand who you are authentically and what you want to create. And I think for any of us, we have to understand that we're on this world to create. And so for me, I always wanted to create, first and foremost, a life by my design, because at the end of the day, who's to tell you that you can't live the life that anybody else that you see on TV is, right? And this is the other thing on my podcast, and I had a guy on there, and he said something that stuck with me, and it was a super hack. But he said, listen, if you ever say to yourself, like, I'm not good at that, right? This is not my thing. I'm not good at that. It's not that you're not good at it. It's just that you're not trained. Nobody is born great at anything, right? Even LeBron had to train, and he still trains. So instead of saying, I'm not good at that, say I'm untrained. So what do you need to do? That means I need to train myself in this area. Whether that be speaking, whether that be copywriting, whether that be video, I'm just untrained. UFC, boxing, everything, you have to train every single day. And so once you train your mindset to re-speak the way that you say these things, right? When you think about it, they say, you know, once you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at will change, right? And I'm a big believer in that, because at the end of the day, we tie so much emotion to everything that I'm gonna tell you a story, and you might have heard this already, but for those people that maybe haven't, this is very powerful as well. There's an old tale about a farmer and his horse. So basically, a farmer has one stallion, right? And his stallion, he loves the stallion, whatever he has. But anyway, one day, son hops on the stallion, they go riding. The stallion bucks off the son. Son falls off, breaks his leg, the stallion takes off. The neighbor comes to the farmer and says, hey, oh man, that's so bad. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, the fact that your son, you know, he lost your only stallion and he broke his leg on top of it. And the farmer says, who knows what's good or what's bad? And the very next day, the stallion comes back and he brings 2 more stallions with him. Right? So then the neighbor comes back and he says, oh man, that's so dope. And he says, what do you mean? He says, the stallion came back and he brought 3. Now you got 3 stallions. You should be happy. The farmer says, who knows what's good or what's bad? Then the next day, the army comes to town and they're rounding up troops. Well, they go to pick up his son, but what happens? His son can't go because he has a broken leg. Army goes to war, everybody dies. Neighbor comes over, says, oh man, you should be so happy. He says, why? He says, because your son didn't have to go because he had a broken leg and all the army got killed. Farmer says, who knows what's good or what's bad? So again, the whole purpose in all of this is to understand that we attach emotion to the outcome. We attach how we react to it. There's somebody out there right now that no matter what you're doing, there's somebody that is winning in your exact situation with no college degree, with no baby daddy, with no baby mother, with the widowed wife. It doesn't matter. Somebody else is winning. But why are they winning? It's not because they're more skilled than you. It's not because they have more resources than you. It's because they train their mindset to understand early on that if it was if it was meant to be, it was truly up to me. Right? And so that's what I think at the end of the day, we all gain our inspiration from someone. And so it's up to you. Who are those people that you can champion behind, and understand that if those people don't really want to rock with you, they weren't made for you, right? And so don't attach emotion to something. Just every day, it's like a stairwell, right? So every day when we look at the stairwell, sometimes it might look like the same mundane shit that we go through every single day, right? It's like, man, I can't ever win. But when you look at it, you're either going to see that you either elevated on the stairwell or you de-escalated on the stairwell, right? So that's what I always just try to tell myself. I try to tell myself that, again, am I elevating every single day, or essentially, am I de-escalating every single day? Am I dying every single day?
Yeah, that's super powerful. That's powerful there. And I think that's a good note to finish this up on, the story that you just did, man. My last question, just kind of going off, because I'm sure I've seen a lot of real estate people in here as well. What would be 3 keys or tips that you could give real estate investors, real estate professionals, that they could implement tonight and see some increase within their business that's been working for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is what you already said. Understand that nobody got there alone. Right? No matter how much money that you think you have right now, understand that even if you're trying to go get mortgages in your own name, once you get to 10, you're going to tap out, right? Banks are in the business of protecting their money. So at the end of the day, you need to have as many people as you can that are on your side that allow you to scale and grow your business. And it all starts with the relationships. So that's the first thing that I would say. I look at every relationship, and just like you talked about earlier, understand that everybody's going to do a transaction. And I believe that in their lifetime, everybody will do a transaction. But the other part of that is to understand that it's not about that one person right there. It's about, really speaking, it's like 1-to-1, 1-to-few, or 1-to-many. Right? You're trying to tap into other people's circles. So with that being said, you got to understand that everybody might not be your client, but that's not to say that that next person that they know is not your client, maybe not your private investor, maybe not, you know, your partner for the next 10 years. So look at every relationship as a golden ticket to where you're trying to get to at the end of the day. So that's what I would say for number one. Number two, I think no matter if you're trying to get into business or if you're trying to get into real estate specifically, I think it's very important that you learn your numbers, because at the end of the day, if you don't know your numbers, one bad deal can really it can wipe out everything for you mentally, right? So it's very important to know your numbers, because like I said, for anybody who was listening earlier, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And to be very meticulous on understanding I got to get this thing as low as possible. If I'm an investor, right, it's all about the numbers in real estate. Take the emotion out. Don't fall in love with the deal, or don't fall in love with the property, fall in love with the deal, right? And then number three, I would say, understand that you are only as limited as you tell yourself, because for a lot of people, they get into the single family game if we're talking about real estate investing. I think even for real estate agents though, I have a license, so I'm a full-time realtor, but then also I'm an investor. I flip things like that, and I own properties myself as well. But the reason why I say that is because for a lot of us, we instantly go to single family homes or fix and flips or wholesaling, but it's really because our mindset doesn't tell us that we can get into storage units. It doesn't tell us that we can go get a couple partners and go get that 12-unit apartment complex, that we can go get that, 30-unit apartment complex. It's always in our mind. And the same thing for real estate agents. We start out and we're only working with maybe buyers because we don't think that we can go get the $500,000 listing. So I think that it's very important for you to protect your mindset, for you to continuously be educating yourself on what people have already done to be successful, because once you get that education, then that follows up with you having that confidence. And once you have confidence, you have that moxie inside of you to feel like I can take over the world. And that's when you really, what did they say? I think it's Henry Ford that might have said, the people who are crazy enough to believe that they can are the people who do. I'm kind of butchering it a little bit, but the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are normally the people who do. Elon Musk is a prime example. He crazy as shit. Kanye is another one. You mentioned Kanye. But those are the people who do. And again, that's where it all starts for me when I talk about Dream Nation. It all starting with the dream. So that's what I would say for anybody. Like, you are your own limitation.
Yeah. Now, that is 100% correct, man. The inner me, or the enemy, is always the inner me. It's always the inner you. So whatever story you're telling yourself every day, whether positive, negative, whether you're thinking big or you're thinking limited, it's 100% accurate. So that's good, man. We'll do some quick Q&A. I see one question here. How do you get a 30-unit? Great question, Walker G. Cass, you want to maybe drop some insight on how to get a,
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk about the commercial world, no matter what, the commercial world is ran a lot different than the residential world. So with that, where a lot of people start at, you got two options. One, you can get lists off like ListSource and things like that, and you can go try to find the owners yourself. Or three options, I guess. Two, you can partner with somebody who's already big into that world, maybe put your value in there, whether that means you got to manage the property for some months, learn the game, those other things are how they find properties if they've already been doing it for a while. Or three, you got to go to the brokers in whatever city that you're looking at. Because that's normally a lot of the times when you talk about the big units, that's a lot of the time housed in by a certain amount of people. Like, it's really like the good old boys club. So no matter what city it is, you want to go find those big brokers that are doing those types of deals, because it's not like a real estate agent that there's like 2,000 of them. You're going to get probably a couple different commercial brokers, and those people they do the bulk of the business. Like they say in any time in business, really that 90% of the business is done by 10% of the people. That's true in real estate all over, but it's definitely true in the commercial. Yeah. People who are normally selling these big commercial spaces, if you just drive around your city, when you look at strip malls and you look and you see that sign up, guarantee you ain't got to drive pretty far to see that one name that's on like 6 signs, like Grant Baldwin or something like that. You're like, damn, he lists everything. So that's what I would tell you. Go find that commercial broker.
Got you. So go find it. Find the commercial broker, Walker G. Tap into that relationship. Groovy. How can he get your book?
Yeah. So my book, if you click on my bio, the book, there's a link in my bio where you can buy it. And yeah, so click on the bio, or otherwise it's realestateLikeTheWinners.com. So realestateLikeTheWinners.com, you can get a hard copy of the book. RealestateLikeTheWinners.com.
Just putting it down here. I'm gonna pin it for you. So yeah, if anyone is interested in getting started in real estate, if anyone's interested in scaling their real estate business, whether from the sales side, from the investor side, definitely pick up this book. A lot of gems, a lot of hacks. It's gonna save you a lot of time as well. My key to success, not saying, I'm at where I want to be, but I mean, simply is literally just shortening the learning curve, man, and getting around people that's doing exactly what I need to do. I mean, even if you're not the smartest individual, you get within that room, you start programming their DNA within yours, right? And kind of like you said, just constantly training that mind every day. It's inevitable. You got to get similar results. Like, there's no way.
Facts, 100%. And yes, I mean, and shout out, I think he popped in here, but both of them popped in here, Neo and Josh. I mean, both of those guys, when we talk about you're finding your tribe. I think everybody has a tribe at their level, and I think it's hard to do. I'll be honest. I'll be the first person to say it. When you're out there and you're trying to become an entrepreneur, when you're trying to figure it out, it's like, especially in the Black community, it's very hard because it feels like that it's still, even though people be winning, it feels like it's still definitely a crabs in a barrel mentality. So a lot of the times, if you can't find the tribe that you can join and be a part of, you got to create your own tribe. What that means is, again, you don't have to know everything. You just have to be 1 or 2 steps ahead. And how you become 1 or 2 steps ahead is that you go and you find some information. And then you just got to teach that to your people, whatever that information is. So you might have just found the first 5 steps of wholesaling. And now you go bring that to your people. Now you guys are just a couple steps ahead of each other, and you're bouncing ideas off of each other, and that energy is going to feel so much better anyway, rather than you trying to spend thousands of dollars with a mentor, and then you're feeling like, yo, he don't want to take my calls, or he's too busy for me, or whatever it is. You can create your own tribe if you don't find one that you resonate.
Right. And I also think it would be safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with you, being a young guy, young professional, especially a Black professional in the space, where when you typically think of real estate and insurance and some of these professional industries, you're thinking more, 50, 60 years old, kind of making their way out of retirement. So even if someone's just starting out like you was not too long ago, if they get out here and bust their butt, if they build relationships, if they're constantly putting out content daily and educating and building that audience, they could quickly get to a level of income that they probably never even thought of, just by dominating that market. Because again, a lot of the people that's been in the game 15, 20 years are kind of stuck to their ways and aren't utilizing this technology source. Would that be safe to say?
Absolutely. I mean, the average real estate agent, I want to say it's came down over the last couple of years. And when I first got in, I think the average real estate agent was like 53 years old, right? Which is crazy. So yes, having the ability to understand Facebook and ClickFunnels. And when I say Facebook, I mean ads and things like that, and even copywriting. But ClickFunnels, Instagram, LinkedIn, carousel posts, all these different things. It's huge. And also just having the ability to be able to search, like, when you get on YouTube, there's a lot of hidden gems on YouTube because it's easy. It's just like Google. Obviously, it's owned by Google, but it's just like Google that a lot of the times people don't go to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th page. So there might be some gems in there, but those gems, because they didn't know how to put the SEO on, right, they just being hidden. So when you go on there and then you learn it, you can get those gems. And maybe you're somebody who says, you know what, I don't like video, but I do like to just speak what I know. So then you take some notes down and you create a podcast with it, right? And you can do the same thing. That's how you can educate your tribe. So there's so many different ways that you can do it. And especially with all of the resources that we have out here today with things like Fiverr and things like Upwork, and how you can find anybody that can help you. If you're not the writer, you go find the writer. There's so many opportunities for you to, just like you said, dominate your market nowadays. Because for a lot of people, it's also been that thing that more people are trying different things. So what that means is not everybody is as fixated on maybe